Hey, everybody, welcome to episode 2 of the Dynamic Life Today podcast. If you missed episode 1, go check it out. I had a great conversation with Corey Nichols of Destiny Rescue. Fantastic conversation. We're working on getting it on the podcast platforms for now. It's just on YouTube, but go check that out. Other than that, I think the only thing to tell you about is that I'm going to be working on our website in March. So we should have some merch by the end of March. We got some fun stuff coming up that I'm kind of excited about. So we'll remind you of that and check that out. Other than that, in today's episode, I talk about my top 10 books of 2023 and my top 5 of 2022. I actually meant to do this episode last year also, just never got around to it. So I'm going to do my top 5 of 2022 because I read some good books then. And without further ado, here we go. Awesome. So, welcome to episode 2 of the Dynamic Life Today podcast. Today, we're talking about my top 10 books of 2023 that I read. I think I was at 50 something books in 2023. I had a little bit of a lag in the summertime, so I didn't quite reach my goal was 80. And then 2022, I think I was at like 67 or something like that. So, and for those of you that are purists, they're like, well, reading audiobooks isn't really reading. Listen, I'm out in the field cleaning pools all day. It counts as reading. Like, I've gotten so many books read because I'm listening to books all day long and uh, getting lots of reading done. So, let's lay off people that are audiobook listeners because it's still considered reading. Um, so the first few books that I'm going to talk about are not in any particular order. The last two are definitely my top 2 of 2023. But first book we're going to talk about is Crooked by Austin Grossman. If you guys are fans of The Magicians, the show wasn't that great. It was okay, but it wasn't great, but I really like the books. That was written by Lev Grossman, and his brother Austin Grossman, I found out last year, is also an author. He's authored a few books. One is called Invincible. It's about superheroes and stuff like that. Um, he's only written a few, and I think I read them all last year. But this one was kind of my favorite. It's called Crooked, and it follows the idea that Nixon was in contact with aliens, and it's really fun. It's told from Nixon's point of view. If you listen to it on audio, the guy that does it is really good with his Nixon impersonation, and just it's just a fun book. It's not the best book I've ever read, but it's one of those that's kind of, you may not know it's out there, or you may not give it a second glance, but uh really good book, highly recommended, just for a fun read. Next one we're going to talk about is When Helping Hurts. Now, this is a good book, especially if you're part of the church, you're part of the mission field, you're in the mission field. This book was really eye-opening for me. I'm on the mission commission at our church and read this last year and really kind of opened my eyes to how much are we actually helping and how much are we hurting. One of the stories I remember the author talks about is a a ministry in Africa, I think it was, where he goes to the ministry, and or maybe they don't go to the ministry, and he starts talking to the pastor over in Africa because he had caught wind, and said, do you really want us to come? Are we helping? And the pastor over in Africa kind of broke down crying and said, like, "Oh, it's not that we don't appreciate it. It's just we really need the money, and that's why we have you come. But it really doesn't help that much when you guys come." So it gives you a different perspective of actually working with the churches. A lot of times when we go to do mission trips and, like especially short-term missions, long-term missions is a little different because you're actually kind of getting into the culture and working with the culture and everything. Whereas short-term missions is like you come in, wreak havoc for a couple days, and then that's that. Um, but it's a good thinking book. It kind of makes you consider like, okay, maybe those short-term trips are more about us and not about the people we're serving. Sometimes it can be disruptive to come in and do all your plan. A lot of times we do our plans, like we're going to do this and we're going to do that and we're going to do this. And really, it's better to go in, either just send the money or go in at the very bare minimum, go in and ask the people that you're ministering to or the pastor that you're partnering with, what can we do to help? Like, what is actually going to help, and not, what are our plans, but how can we come alongside you instead of coming in and taking control of the whole situation? So, um, that's the basic summary of the book, but it's a really good book. You really should check it out. Like I say, particularly if you're in church and you're part of the mission board or you're part of, short-term missions a lot, it really kind of gives you perspective to think about how we're doing this and what we're doing in these different ministries. So, third book I read last year on my top 10 is Choose Wonder Over Worry. This one's kind of a fun one, kind of a, it's self-explanatory. Choose Wonder Over Worry. It talks a lot about not worrying so much as you go along in life, but kind of seeing life in essence through the eyes of a child, kind of choosing the wonder of life and choosing the adventure of life instead of constantly worrying about everything is going to, how am I going to make money? How am I going to do this? How am I going to do that? But really kind of gives you the bravery to move forward. A lot of times we get stuck just because we worry so much about what the future holds and we don't really know in the end. So the author kind of encourages us to be curious and choose wonder and hold that childlike curiosity, for life, and not worry quite so much. Obviously there's going to be worries in life. There's going to be things that you worry about, but you can choose to not worry as much and kind of choose that. I'm repeating the same words over and over again, but I don't know how else to describe it. Just kind of have that childlike view on life and push forward and can continue to take a step. Here's one of the things that I've learned, and it kind of pertains to this, is that sometimes we get stuck with, I don't know which step to take next, and sometimes we just have to take a step. And even if it's the wrong step, it's not going to kill you. You just go back and say, okay, that was the wrong step, so this one over here must be the right step. But the concepts in this book kind of, I just realized I'm reversing everything, help you to see life in that way and kind of take those steps. Because if we're choosing wonder over worry, then we're not going to worry so much about which step we take. We're just going to take a step, and if it's wrong, it's wrong, and we go back and take it over. So another great book that I recommend that you read. And then next up, we've got Washed and Waiting. I'm looking at my monitor where I'm pointing. There we go. Learning how to do this with my monitor. Wesley Hill. So I read a few books. I had a friend whose daughter I found out was gay. They're Christians, and I kind of asked him about it and how that all came about and everything. And he turned me on to Changing Our Mind by Paul Gushy. And so I ended up reading a few books. There was Changing Our Mind, there was God and the Gay Christian, and there was Wash and Waiting. So God and the Gay Christian I kind of read on my own. That is Matthew Vine. And Wash and Waiting I read with my Wednesday night study group. And this is by Wesley Hill. All three are good books. I'm not a huge fan of the Gushy book. I'm not a huge fan of Gushy as an author, but definitely Hill and Vine are both really good. and they take kind of two different perspectives on it. Wesley Hill takes the perspective of a Christian who is gay but chooses not to practice. He's celibate. He's chosen to not pursue that lifestyle, not to continue in that lifestyle. Whereas Matthew Vine, God and the Gay Christian, is someone who has chosen as a Christian to follow, to lead the gay lifestyle as a Christian. And I kind of recommend you read both because they're both just to kind of give you perspective on where people are coming from and what they're thinking and how they're thinking. And they're both really good. I just kind of chose Wesley Hill because this one was really well written and has some good reflections on it and was a really good addition to our Bible study group. So, well, I say Bible study group, but it's a group of Christians. We're reading books, not necessarily the Bible. So, not that you needed to know that. But anyway, this is a good book. I just kind of chose one of the three. Like I said, Wesley Hill I recommend, Matthew Vine I recommend, Paul Gushy, yeah, read it. I'm not a huge fan, but, you can read it. I think part of the reason I'm not a huge fan of Gushy is because he's not gay. So I feel like he's writing about something that he doesn't really truly know about, whereas Wesley Hill and Matthew Vine are both gay, so you get to hear it from the perspective of someone who's actually has these struggles or, is in this lifestyle. So that's why I recommend those two books. Next on the list, we've got Titch by Karen Slaughter. If you guys last year started watching Will Trent and really liked the show, I kind of liked the show as I was watching it. It was pretty good. Now, if you really like the show, do not read this book. Whoop. Where's my finger pointing? There we go. I gotta get used to that. If you really like the show, do not read this book. The books are different than the show, and they're way better than the show. I really enjoyed this. I read this one first, and then I kind of went back. I found out, I think I read a couple of them, and then I found out that there was another character that was added to it that was actually a character from a previous series that she had done. So I went back to the Grant County series and really have been enjoying that too. I haven't read them all yet, but if you really like mystery and you really like, kind of the murder mystery type stuff, this really kind of makes the show suck. Like, I really don't have any desire to go back to the show now that the second season is out. But these are very good books, very well written, very enjoyable, and if you really, Titch is the first one in the Will Trent series, but the Grant County series, I can't remember what the first book is called, Unbroken or something like that. So you can check them out. Just look for Karen Slaughter, look for all her books, and she's a very good writer. I really enjoyed her books last year, and like I said, I read 7 or 8 of them, whatever I could get on the app for listening to my books. Next up, we've got Stories I Only Tell My Friends by Rob Lowe. This one was a trip to me, and the reason I put it on my list is because it was really amazing. I'm not much, I don't get starstruck. I'm not much on like reading actors' books and stuff like. At least I didn't used to be. I've listened to a lot of podcasts with actors and stuff, and you kind of get to see the human side of them, and they become a lot more interesting than just people who've been in a movie and are super popular. With Stories I Only Tell My Friends, it was really a trip to see Rob Lowe's career and Rob Lowe's life and all the people that he intersected with and all the people that he starred in movies with and all the, just looking at his career from the perspective of the spider's web of actors that he's worked with and that he's been a part of, Tom Cruise and, a few of the others, as well as looking at his personal life and what that looked like. Just a book that I really found it. Not all books by celebrities are great. They're not all, something that I would read. But this one was a really good read. It was really fun. I recommend the audiobook on this one actually because he narrates it, and it's always more fun for me when someone's telling their autobiography and the stories of their life if they narrate it. Because they can, you get their intonation, you get kind of their version of the story, and not someone else trying to tell their story, essentially. So, very good book. Stories I Only Tell My Friends by Rob Lowe, autobiography. Very interesting. Next up, we've got Good Omens, Terry Pratchett and Neil Gaiman. Now, I will tell you, I'm a Neil Gaiman fan, and I started watching American Gods, and then read the book, and have just I started watching, or yeah, I watched Sandman first, and then read the comics. I'm almost done with the comics, and he's just such a storytelling master. Like, he's really great at storytelling. I really enjoy. I haven't found anything that Neil Gaiman's done that I haven't liked yet. The only thing I will say that I didn't like was season 2 of Good Omens. Season 1 was really good. Most of his stuff I've seen the shows before I read the books, and the books are always really good. Good Omens, no different. The book Good Omens is great. Season 2 of the show got into some themes that I was just like, why? It was stuff that wasn't in the book, and it's just unnecessary. Um, and for those of you that have watched it, I'm gonna go into detail for those of you that have watched it, so you're not like thinking, oh, this guy just doesn't like gay people. Okay, let's get into the TV show a little bit. So season 1 was great. It was, um, I guess I should say, so Good Omens is basically the story of an angel and a demon that have kind of have been friends for thousands of since the beginning of time. They were kind of there at the beginning, at creation and everything, and then they've kind of been friends. And the demon is kind of a bad influence on the angel, and the angel's a good influence on the demon. And so there's this kind of back and forth. It's really it's fun. It's not like it's not evil in any way. It's just kind of a fun relationship to see the two of them, where the angel isn't perfectly good and the demon isn't perfectly bad, and just a lot of stuff kind of going wrong with each of their plans and stuff like that. So really fun, really enjoyable book, really enjoyable season 1 of the show, which season 1 is the book. Season 2, they got into a lot of kind of woke, it's so there's a couple of characters that are gay in season 2, and you kind of see that starting to play out, and that's fine. I was actually perfectly fine with that. I said, okay, I can see what's going on here. It's cool. I'm not going to worry about it. What bothered me is the whole, like, season 2 of Good Omens, the angel and the demon, or at least the demon, they kind of start moving that direction with them also. I don't want to spoil anything, but you can tell it's kind of coming throughout the season, and I just kind of hoped at the end they would shift and not go there, but they did go there. I just felt like it was unnecessary. Not that like I said, the other gay characters that are in there, I didn't really have a problem with, but making the angel and the demon gay was just kind of like, just why? Like, there was really. It's not something in the book. The book even says, angels and demons are sexless. And I just felt like it was a really unnecessary move that they made in season 2. So, all that, anyway, didn't really need to go off on that rant. I just wanted you guys to know that, that was my main problem with season 2 of the show. But the book still is great. Got to remember where I'm pointing. Book is still great. Book is still something I recommend. Really enjoyed it, and everything Neil Gaiman does is just he's a very good storyteller. And I maybe I shouldn't say it on here, but dare I say maybe the Tolkien of our time. He's really really good storyteller. Next up, we've got Extreme Ownership. Now, this is one of the nonfictions that I read last year that was really good. It's written by U.S. Navy SEALs, or former Navy SEALs, talking about how to lead and win. And it's written in the format of stories of, so they're the themes that they want to touch on, they actually tell stories from their days in the SEALs of how it applies and how those themes have come together. And it's basically extreme ownership is exactly what it is. It's taking ownership over yourself and your part that you have in relationships and leadership in everything in life, and realizing that if you're the type of leader that blames everybody else for everything that goes wrong, then you're never going to be a successful leader. Extreme ownership means that you're taking ownership over your own stuff as a leader. You're taking ownership over, essentially you're taking ownership over the what's the word I'm looking for? The productiveness of your crew. So if you're a CEO, you're taking extreme ownership over the output of your employees, and using that to help guide the company and help bring about the changes that you need. So this was very good. It's not about like how to get employees to do what you want them to do or how to get other people to do what you want them to. It's about taking extreme ownership over your own stuff, and in so doing inspiring people to follow you, and working on building relationships and companies and everything in that way. So another great read. Next up we've got, okay, so far I feel like I'm rushing through these a little bit, but that's okay. So far everything we've done has been out of order, just kind of books that I read that I really enjoyed. These last two are my top two books of 2023. Deep Nutrition. I have taken control of my blood work, of my body, of my blood pressure, mostly on the principles that I read in this book. I read it. It was really eye-opening as far as just information on nutrition, on how we cook, how we eat, what we eat, getting rid of seed oils, getting rid of vegetable oils, and really focusing on using the right fats in our diets. And I will say this, that doing some of the principles in this book, Lena has looked at me a few times and been like, dude, this just doesn't seem right. Like, it doesn't seem right the way you're eating. And I said, I know, but the sugar companies lied to us 50 years ago. So what are you going to do? And it hasn't, I've changed the way I eat. I've added more fat, but I've added more, animal fats, and I'm still eating what I enjoy, just, cutting out the vegetable oils and the bad stuff, the stuff that's bad for you. And my numbers are trending in the right direction. As far as my blood tests, I'm still not where my doctor wants me to be, but I see him every 6 months, and my blood work is trending in the right direction. My blood pressure, I was on medication for about 6 months and then got off it, just changing my habits and changing my diet, and getting out and exercising more. And I've managed to stay off that, and it's been all principles from this book. I mean, this book has really been amazing in teaching me how to eat, and going back to the way people used to cook traditionally. One of the things she says, and was something I kind of noticed, is that a lot of times when we watch Food Network stuff, or we read recipe books and everything, and they'll try to teach us how to make like African dishes or how to make French dishes and everything, but they'll switch it up for a more American palate, and by doing that you're losing some of the nutrients that you get from those traditional styles of cooking. There's some substitutions that can be made. I'm usually a semi-homemade kind of guy, where it's like you don't have the exact herbs that the recipe calls for. Well, use the herbs that you like, or use the herbs that you have on hand, kind of thing. But as far as cooking methods and everything, and the way we cook it, a lot of times we change it to an Americanized version, and we lose the nutrition of the way that people have been cooking forever. So this kind of goes back to that. It goes back to kind of cultures that are still cooking the way they always have, and really just teaches you how to do that and how to kind of take control of your health. And I tell you, I'm going to do an episode of it as soon as I get my next numbers and see where they're at. I'm hoping my next numbers are almost like right where they need to be. But eventually, I'm going to do a video on that and on what I did to get there, and the fact that I did it without medication. So be looking out for that. That'll come eventually. I've got a few more months, but Deep Nutrition, great book. And number 2 and number 1 are kind of tied. Like, it's not number 2 and number 1. They're both kind of number 1 in my book for last year. But the next one is Israel by Noah Tishby. I had heard about this book. So we're in February of 2024 right now, and last year, October 7th, is when everything started happening in Israel, and Hamas attacked Israel. And I had heard about this book. I saw her on Bill Maher's show, a few months before that happened, and, kind of put it in my Amazon cart and sort of forgot about it, or thought, just was going to read it later. And then October 7th, 2023 happened, and I was like, it's time I picked that up. So I picked it up and started reading it. And the reason I love this book is because it is the most fair book I think I've ever read on a kind of political issue. She calls out the government where it needs to be called out. She calls out Israel's history where it needs to be called out, and really tries to be very honest about the history of Israel as a nation, what got us to this point, what got us to, and all the different political arenas, all the different things that have gone on in order to get us to the point that we're at now. And it's a very interesting book, very well written. She is Israeli, but like I said, she calls out Israel where they've been wrong too. She doesn't say, she doesn't say Israel's this perfect little angel that's done everything correct. And that's what I really liked about this book, is I thought it was a really fair representation of what has gone on. It doesn't, obviously she's biased because she's Israeli, but she also, I'm not sure what those fireworks are, but that looks cool. But anyway, I must have said something that's causing those to go off. Anyway, she is, like I said, she's fair. She's very fair in her assessment of everything. So pick that up. Like, if you're really curious, it gets kind of deep. It delves into the history, and if you're not into history at all, it can be kind of dry, but it's really a fair representation of how we got to the point that we're at right now in February 2024, and highly recommend that you guys read this book. With that, we're going to go on to 2022, my top 5 of 2022. These are in no particular order, well, except for the last one again. The last one was my number 1 book, probably of all time so far, but definitely of 2022. But we'll start with Atomic Habits. This is a great, you're going to find that your life is highly reliant on your habits. If you have a habit of watching too much TV, if you have a habit of scrolling all the time, if you have a habit of, whatever habits you create in your life are really going to determine what direction you go in your life. And this is a great book talking about that. It's talking about the atomic habits. And atomic, it's interesting. I've heard a lot of people say this. It's not like an atomic bomb kind of atomic habits. It's the tiny things. It's like atomic size habits, that every tiny little thing that you do, each habit you create in order to create the life that you want, has an effect on that life. So that's what this book is about. Easy and proven way to build good habits and break bad ones. Highly recommend this book also. It's kind of changed my life. This combined with a lot of productivity tools that I've been using lately, as far as keeping my schedule straight, keeping, checklists in places that, for a while I was just kind of using my notes app to put checklists in random places and just not getting enough done. And I've now created on my phone, I've created a user interface that really helps me stay focused, get the stuff done that I need to get done, create those habits that keep me from, constant scrolling and constant TV and constant wastes of time, and really kind of getting done the things I need to get done to create the life that I want to create. So, again, another big recommendation. Next up, we've got David and Goliath. This one I just kind of chose just because it's Malcolm Gladwell. I have enjoyed everything that I've read by Malcolm Gladwell, especially listening to his audiobooks. When he does audiobooks, he kind of adds stuff to it. It's a production, so it's a lot of fun, and it adds something to the book when he does his audiobooks. And this is no exception. It's talking about underdogs, misfits, and the art of battling giants. It talks about seeing the problems in your life, or the struggles in your life, as springboards towards getting you to the life that you want, instead of seeing it as something that's crushing you, seeing it as something that you can defeat, you can overcome, you can be the underdog that defeats the giant. And just a really good read. I think all of Malcolm Gladwell's books I would recommend on audio, just because it's got kind of added production value. But they're all good, even if you read them. And this one's no exception. I can't remember the other ones that I read of his that year, but I read a few of them. Oh, Bomber Mafia was really good. And by production, I mean, he actually goes into, and actually, to be fair, I haven't read the books. I've listened to them, so maybe these are in the books too. But you can actually hear the interviews of the people he interviews for the books to get information and hear those people talking. So it's a lot of fun. Next up, we've got Leonardo da Vinci. I'm a big Walter Isaacson fan. I'm a big McCullough fan also. Those are my kind of two favorite biographers. Leonardo da Vinci, I've read Einstein, I've read Steve Jobs. Isaacson does a great job of creating these biographies for all these people. Da Vinci was one of my favorites. It was a lot of fun because he's really a genius in ways that you don't know he's a genius. We tend to see Da Vinci as kind of an artist, an inventor, all the typical stuff that we talk about, but we don't really talk much about just how much of a genius he was, like the mathematical, the fact that he kind of invented the modern depth of field in painted art. He was studying that a lot, trying to figure out how to create kind of 3D paintings that had depth, and that had, that were as realistic. The hyper realism that we have today was kind of started by Leonardo da Vinci. And just his brain is just so incredible. And Isaacson goes through a lot of his paintings, a lot of his life, and just the different parts of his life that, from Florence to, I think Naples, maybe, can't remember where he moved to, but back and forth to Florence, and the people that he worked for. And just a fantastic book, and very, very interesting in seeing Leonardo's mind, and not just seeing him as that painter guy that painted the Mona Lisa, but really kind of going through all of his art and the progression of basic art to studying depth of field and trying to create as realistic of art as possible. And the fact that started kind of with him was very interesting to me. So definitely a great read. Next up, we've got... now we're back to the Grossmans, The Magicians. So I read this in 2022 and really enjoyed it. And I don't think I invented this. I think I heard it somewhere else, but I definitely agree. It's basically Harry Potter for adults. There's some adult themes and some adult scenes in this, some adult language. But it's a really fun story. It's really well told. There's 3 books in all. The Magicians is the first one. And then, as it says up there, you got the Magician King and the Magician's Land. just very fun story that's told. And like I said, I saw the show. The show was okay. It wasn't fantastic, but it was good enough. I think probably the first season was the best, and then it kind of went downhill a little bit. But definitely, I'm gonna read this again this year. I don't count when I count my book numbers. I don't count books that I've already read unless it's been like 10 years. So like right now, I'm rereading the Harry Potter series because it's been over 10 years since I read it. But that's kind of how I reward myself for my reading every year. If I meet my goal or I'm on track to meet my goal, then I can go back and read books that I enjoy, like Lord of the Rings and The Magicians and stuff like that. But Lev and Austin Grossman, very good authors. Lev Grossman, The Magicians, really enjoyed this one. If you like Harry Potter, you'll like The Magicians. It's set in a different world and just is really interesting the direction that he takes it. I don't want to give away too much, but yeah, I think I'll leave it at there so I don't give away too much. But it's a very interesting. Where it starts is not really where it goes, so it's fun and interesting. And then I think we're on our last one now. This was my number one book of 2022, and possibly my number one book of all time right now. This is Green Lights by Matthew McConaughey. And like I said earlier, I'm not much of a. I don't go gaga over celebrity. I don't go. It was the premise of it was interesting to me, which is why I read it. And this one, I will say, out of all the books, do not read the printed version of this book. This book is so fantastic in the audio version of it. You have to read it. If you've read it in the print, read it again in the audio. You get his personality. You get his kind of McConaugheyisms in it. And it's just such a fantastic book, such a fantastic... it's about all the green lights in his life, red lights and green lights in his life, opportunities that came that he took, opportunities that he missed, things that he didn't take that were red lights, that kind of basic premise. And the stories that he tells, again, he tells them in his voice. It's kind of like the Rob Lowe book. Like, he's telling it in his voice. So you get that whole McConaughey kind of way of speaking and everything as he's telling the stories. He's not just reading the book. Like, he's reading it as though he's actually talking to you and telling you these stories. And it's just an amazing, amazing audiobook. The content of it is great. It was really inspiring to me in 2022. I'm going to read this one again this year also because it was so good. Just on life and on, he inspired me in a few different directions as far as what I was doing in my life, and kind of inspired me to, take different directions, or to, say no to, I think that was one of my biggest inspirations, was saying no to certain things, or if there's something that you want to do, say no to everything else, kind of making that choice. And so I really enjoyed this book. I can't say enough. If you've read the printed version, read the audio version. If you haven't read it yet, don't bother with the printed version. Just read the audio version. It is not to be missed. It is absolutely amazing. I really truly, I'm a huge Lord of the Rings fan. Maybe Green Lights isn't my favorite book of all. It's certainly my favorite nonfiction of all time. Let's put it that way. Just the way that it was narrated, and the content in it was just absolutely fantastic. I may even read it every year. I didn't read it last year, but because I got behind on my goal. But I may start reading it every year if I can keep up with my goal. So those are my top 10 of 2023, my top 5 of 2022. Hitting my goals pretty good in 2024. My goal this year is 104. I figured 2 books a week, so in 52 weeks I can hit 104. And right now I'm actually ahead. I'm reading a lot of books that I can read in a day, so, call it cheating if you want, but I'm reading a lot of books, enjoying myself. I'm kind of in the Agatha Christie series right now, reading about Hercule Poirot and Tommy and Tuppence, and I've read one Miss Marple book, and that's another great series. Agatha Christie, all her books are really well written, a lot of fun. And, if you listen to audio, you can read them in a day kind of thing. And I actually haven't tried reading print. Maybe you could read the print in a day too. But get out there and read. Don't be a purist. If you're one of those people that's like, well, reading audiobooks isn't reading, get off that high horse and start reading audiobooks. Start putting them in as you're going about your day, especially if you have a job like you're a gardener or a pool guy like I am, or any kind of job where you just have hours of nobody talking to you or not having to talk to anybody, and you're listening to music. If you're listening to music all day, you can listen to audiobooks, and you're going to learn a lot and you're going to enjoy a lot. I'm kind of making up for lost time with a lot of books that I feel like I should have read and didn't read. And it's a lot of fun. So get out there, get reading, teach your kids to read, teach them to use audiobooks. If you haven't yet gotten on the Libby app, get on that, because that's where I get most of my books now. I do have Audible, and I do buy books on there every once in a while, but if you get on that Libby app, I'm reading most of these books for free, just having a library card. So get on that and start having fun. Start enjoying yourself. And don't feel like you have to read a bunch of nonfiction. I go through different... I traditionally have tried to do one nonfiction, one fiction, one nonfiction, one fiction, and now I just kind of go with whatever mood I'm in or whatever series I'm on. Like I say, I'm reading a lot of Agatha Christie right now, and once I'm done with that, then I don't know. I'm reading 3 or 4 books at a time all the time, and Lena's always saying, "Oh, I don't know how you do that." And I was like, I don't know. I just whatever I feel like reading at the moment, I read that. So I hope you guys have a blessed day. I hope you guys start reading. Gosh, Green Lights is still on there. I love that book. Love that book. Get started reading. Have a great 2024. It's not too late to start your reading journey. Make a goal. If your goal is 20 books, then make it 20 books. I only say 104 because I know I can. And train yourself too. If you're an audiobook reader or you become one, train yourself to read it in time and a half. I actually read Song of Ice and Fire, the Game of Thrones series. I read that in double time, but that was mostly because I'd seen the series and kind of knew what was going on, so I could listen to it in double time and just kind of make references. But most of the stuff I read in time and a half. And I actually now, when I hear Lena listening to stuff in single time, it drives me crazy. It's just so slow. So your brain, it's hard at first, but your brain kind of catches up and you start learning. So I might actually switch to time and 3/4 this year and see if I can do it even more, just to get more information in that brain of mine. And I do still enjoy it. It's not like shoveling down ice cream where you just don't have time to enjoy it. I do still enjoy everything I read. And I wonder if my hand motions are causing that to happen. Am I causing that to happen? I don't know where all those fireworks are coming from. Anyway, you guys have a great 2024. Get to reading, get to learning, and we'll catch you in episode 3.